Welcome back to the Crash Course Podcast. My name is Craig Crash Collins, joined as always by Brandon Scott. You know him as B. Scott. Well, game one of the Richardson Steichen era is in the books, and there is a lot to discuss. Today, we're going to react to the Colts' loss to the Jaguars. We're going to give our grades from the game. We're going to give a hot take based on what we saw. We're going to give a lot of breakdown, a lot of reaction to the game on Sunday. We're also going to predict next week's game against the Texans. And we're also going to talk about week one as a whole because there were a lot of storylines, a lot of crazy things that happened. We're going to give some crazy predictions as well for week two. So, B. Scott, football is finally here, and week one did not disappoint.
It did not. It's just so weird. Like, it feels like a whole new dawning of football to me as a football fan, because both of the two teams at the pro level and then at the college level that I cheer for have new coaches and new quarterbacks, and so it's kind of like a whole bunch of unknowns, and feel like you're watching a brand new team. So very exciting this year, and I'll tell you what, Sunday was entertaining, and it very, very encouraging for the future. I would say
it felt really like, I don't know the right word to describe it, or I do, and I'm just going to use it later on in the broadcast when we give our one word to describe the offense and the defense. But I felt really good about it just because, like, it kind of felt like, okay, finally we're moving forward. Through all of the years of, even with Phillip Rivers, like, I know the Phillip Rivers year was the only one that was actually a success as far as the plug and play veteran quarterback project went. But those years kind of felt like, okay, it feels like we're just kind of delaying the inevitable. Eventually we're going to have to go out and get a quarterback. And that's finally what the Colts did. I know that I was a big advocate of Jacoby Brissett and Carson Wentz. I thought both of those were both those players were potential answers. I knew, but especially with Matt Ryan, I was like, we're just kicking the can down the road. Like, we need to get a quarterback in there, and finally to see a young, fresh face, the future of the Colts, and have it be the type of debut he had, it was very refreshing to be like, okay, now it feels like we're finally moving on. We're finally taking the next step towards getting back to where we hope and want the Colts to be.
Yeah, it's the Colts finally have a plan. And the past few years, when you watch the Colts struggle, it was just like, this is ridiculous because there's no hope. Whereas this year, if you watch the Colts play and they struggle, you go, you know what? It's okay because there's going to be growing pains. It's a rookie quarterback, rookie head coach. Things are looking up. At least you can say, I'm looking towards the future now. And didn't I really emphasize that in our season preview, telling Colts fans, hey, it's not about the win-loss record this year. Honestly, a better losing record is better for this team going forward. And so right now it's all about the future, and it is exciting. Even in a loss, it is exciting because you can see what this team could potentially be. If now the next thing will be to be seen. Can they build off of where they faltered this week? That will be the next sign of good growth. And I think that's the kind of success I'm looking for this year.
Yeah,
and I'm excited. It is exciting, even in a loss.
Well, let's go ahead and kind of dive into it because week one, like I said, was very exciting. We saw the Lions spoil the Chiefs banner celebrations. The 49ers rout the Steelers. The Browns dominate the Bengals. We see the Cowboys absolutely obliterate the Giants. Aaron Rodgers, we learned today, as of recording this, he tears his Achilles. The Jets fans are in agony right now. Of course, they're not too much because they won, but at what cost?
Who did they beat? Who did they beat?
Yeah, exactly. There you go. It's the B. Scott victory lap. This is what this podcast is.
Didn't I say in our NFL season preview?
Yeah.
The Buffalo Bills no longer deserve to be in the conversation of Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, well, and it's funny too because last night on the Monday Night Football game, they were like, yeah, Philip Rivers, Josh Allen has, he's got the most touchdowns, through the first 5 years of any quarterback in history, but he also has like the most turnovers, and then you kind of see it play out where he throws the first pick, and you're like, okay, that's not a great pick. Then he throws the second, then he throws the third, then like completely like, or maybe he only had 3 interceptions, but like he just kept turning the ball over, and it's like, okay, this is just getting like, I was, you sent me that clip earlier today, and I was like, yeah, he was just bad. Like, there's no other way around it. There's no like, oh well, the Jets defense. I mean, the Jets defense is good, but there's no reason and especially in a game like that, first game of the season, first Monday night game, it should be a game you get up for and play your best, and he just did not play well at all.
No.
So yeah, it is the B Scott victory lap week. I'll give it to you because you were right on that account as well. But yeah, let's get into this Colts and Jaguars game. Kind of looking back, we'll give her a little bit of a game summary here in case you missed it. In the first quarter, the Jaguars strike first on a 9-play, 61-yard drive capped off by Trevor Lawrence, throwing a touchdown pass to Calvin Ridley. It was 7-0 Jaguars after 1. In the second quarter, you saw the Colts offense finally get going. They respond with an 11-play, 75-yard touchdown drive. Anthony Richardson on the quarterback keeper for his first NFL touchdown. Jacksonville gets back on top with a great throw from Trevor Lawrence to Zay Jones, who had a phenomenal catch on the sideline in the end zone. The Jaguars were leading 14-7 at halftime. In the third quarter, on 2nd and 28, Anthony Richardson finds Michael Pittman, who goes 39 yards to the house, and that makes it a tie game at that point. Then DeForest Buckner returns one of the most bizarre fumbles of all time for a touchdown to give the Colts a lead of 21-7 after the third. It was
that was like a double fumble.
Yeah, it was. Trevor Lawrence got hit from behind, the ball came out, and then no one really knew if it was an incomplete pass or not. I think
it was Tank Bigsby.
Yeah. He picked it up,
and just stood there. But great heads up play by Zaire Franklin to go up and not make the tackle, but punch the ball out.
Yeah.
And then for DeForest Buckner to pick it up and just rumble it in. I'm sitting there screaming at the TV, there's no whistle. Yeah. They haven't blown it dead. So great heads up play there.
Oh, yeah. In the fourth quarter with 5:14 to play, Tank Bigsby punches it in from 1 yard out to give the Jags the lead again. And then 66 seconds later, Travis Etienne breaks a 26-yard run to push the Jaguars' lead to 10. The Colts get all the way down to the goal line on third down. Right before third down, Anthony Richardson is forced to leave due to injury. He wasn't, he had gotten banged up a couple of plays prior. Minshew throws a pair of incompletions to end the comeback attempt for Indy, and the Jaguars beat the Colts 31-21. Looking at some stats from the game, Trevor Lawrence was 24 of 32 for 241 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also threw a pick. Calvin Ridley had 8 catches for 101 yards and a touchdown. For the Colts, Anthony Richardson was 24 for 37 for 223 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. He also had 40 yards on the ground and a touchdown. Michael Pittman had 8 catches for 97 yards and a touchdown. So in our reaction for the first game, we're going to go through a couple of different phases of our reaction. The first thing I wanted to get to is giving this week 1 of the Steichen Richardson era, which is a mouthful to say. I'm going to just throw that out there. So that's a lot of syllables in that phrase.
We just call it a new era in Colts football.
Yes. Give it a grade. What we thought overall from game 1 for new head coach Shane Steichen and Anthony Richardson, the new quarterback for the Colts. And so when I was kind of trying to dissect the game, there are a lot of good things to take from it, a lot of promising things to take from it, and I had to kind of do a, take my fandom out of it and try to accurately give it a grade because, like, look, because I think the only way you give this game an A is if the Colts win. That was the only way that I would have given it an A, but I was like right knocking on the door of a B+ because I was like, dude, great debut for Anthony Richardson. The defense looked really good and all this stuff. But then I looked at kind of some of the numbers. Offensively, they had 280 yards against a Jaguars defense that was ranked 26th in the preseason by Pro Football Network. They had just 5 games that were worse than that last season, where they had a worse output than 280 yards of total offense. One was the upset against the Chiefs, so that's kind of the outlier. One was the all-time terrible performance against the Pats, where it was like historically bad offensively. And then two were during the Jeff Saturday era towards the end of the year. Defensively, they gave up 342 yards, which would have been a middle-of-the-road performance a year ago. So by the numbers, those two stats there, with the numbers the offense put up and the numbers the defense allowed, makes you kind of want to put it in the C range, because you're like, well, all told, it's kind of more of the same from what we've seen from the Colts over the past couple of years. But I'll split the difference. I'm going to say B-. That's the grade I'm going to give for game one here, because there were some flashes and there is some cause for optimism. You have Anthony Richardson notching his first rushing and passing touchdown, which was a strong debut. Any criticisms that we have from Anthony Richardson from game one are not anything that we weren't already coming into the season knowing that he was going to struggle through and be obstacles for him. Yeah, he got hurt towards the end of the game because he needs to learn how to slide or just not run as often. He's going to have to try to be more of a pocket passer. We already knew that going in. I wasn't a huge fan of all the fourth down attempts. I don't know why. For whatever reason, it seemed to be a theme this week that if you were between the 45s, you didn't punt. You went for it on fourth down, because I saw it not only so often in the Colts and Jaguars game, but we also saw it in the Bears-Packers game. I saw it, I think, even in the Cowboys game. It happened, I think, in the Bills game. So it's like, man, wow, we just decided that punters don't exist if you're inside the 45-yard line.
I wonder if it has something to do with these teams are trying to offset any potential injuries.
Maybe.
Because when you're kicking in that area, you are really skying it up, and then you'll get that one guy that's like, I'm going to be a hero here and try to return get some yardage. Yeah. And somebody just gets absolutely leveled and hurt pretty badly.
Maybe.
I don't know. But yeah, you're right. A lot of the games it was that way. So I was going to say, like, well, it was kind of no man's land. So
yeah, no, I mean, I'm for it if it actually works.
For the Colts, like, they had nothing to lose.
True, that is fair.
I mean, you're in the game, and I'll get into it in mine. Keep going.
No, but I was just gonna say, obviously, there's some things that could improve. Michael Pittman had a good game. Zaire Franklin had 18 tackles. DeForest Buckner, who I said was gonna have a big year, he has the fumble return for the touchdown. Obviously there's some things, like I said, to improve. Like I said, not super fond of the fourth downs. Obviously the run game needs to improve, especially now that it's on life support at the moment.
In the Colts defense there with the run game, you're down basically to your fourth string and practice squad running back right now. So,
but bottom line, I feel like a majority of the day the Colts were in it, and that's all you can ask for. It's like you said, I was planning on giving you props, Beast Guy. I know we said it's got victory lap. I was gonna give you props because that's what you said. As long as they're competitive and in the game, it's gonna be exciting, and it was. And it doesn't. The result, I felt better after the loss this year in Week 1 than I have after the tie last year in Houston. After Week 1 of the Carson Wentz era when they lost to the Seahawks. Like, I feel better about what we saw on Sunday than I have about this team in a while.
Yeah. So I'm giving them a B, just a flat B, because the offense struggled. I would say the offense got pretty flat and had trouble staying on the field because of the run game. When there's no run game outside of your quarterback, that's going to be a problem. And but the biggest encouraging thing I saw out of the offense, other than Anthony Richardson and his chemistry with Michael Pittman Jr., and got to talk about his chemistry he had with Josh Downs. I was very pleased with that rookie wide receiver as well. His chemistry with Kylan Granson looked good. I mean, I think that's probably the best game Kylan Granson's had his entire career. But the offensive line played pretty well. I'm not saying they were great. It's not like it was a couple of years ago when that line was solid. It was improved. I don't know if that was because Anthony Richardson was able to scramble out and extend plays, and that's something we haven't seen recently, or if they are taking those steps. But the offense did have trouble staying on the field. So I give the defense a pass a little bit for how many yards they gave up. Because look at the second half, a good majority of the second half, that defense kept this team in the game and gave the Colts the lead. The defense was lights out at a point.
No,
However,
I was very shocked to see the 342 at the end of the day because it felt like it was a lot better than that.
yeah, and that's because at the end, as the game went on, the offense kept 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. Defense got gassed. They can only hold up for so long when they are constantly on the field. And I feel like a lot of the big chunk of those yards came when Jacksonville regained the lead and extended it. I mean, you take away that one big Travis Etienne rush of that 26-yard touchdown. I mean, that makes things look even a little bit better. Early in the game, when Jacksonville marched it right down the field with Calvin Ridley every single play, it felt like. I mean, those two drives alone are game changers as far as the yardage goes. Obviously, the score as well, but I give the defense a little bit of a pass because the defense was really what kept the Colts in this game and put them in a position to win the game. So that's why I'm going with a B, just because I'm looking at kind of like the intangibles there that are like, well, yeah, that defense played really well, but man, were they gassed at the end, and rightfully so. And then the offense had its moments. There's a lot to improve upon in the offense. But I would say right now, the area that needs the most improvement is the offense, which is good. That's going to give this team an opportunity to win every week.
Oh yeah. And so, it's after week 1, it's the world of the hot take, the overreaction, because you've seen one game and it's either affirmed what you've already believed, or it's, been so drastically different that you're, ready to abandon hope altogether. So I thought, let's give a hot take overreaction to week 1 of the Colts season. We're also going to do this for the NFL as a whole a little bit later. But my hot take for the Colts after week 1. I wanted to go a couple of different ways with this, but this is where I ultimately landed on. The Colts will win in Jacksonville for the first time since 2014. From what I saw on Sunday, I think it's finally going to happen. About a month from now, October 15th, the Colts will be at Jacksonville. The numbers from today's loss weren't drastically different from what we saw from the Colts' week 2 loss last season, where Jacksonville beat them 24-0. They had a similar amount of yards. I think they ended up in that game like 218 yards of offense, and they gave up about 350 or so yards in that week 2 loss last year. And so the numbers were pretty similar, and yet it was a lot closer game. It was 31-21, and it took a late touchdown from Travis Etienne to make it a 10-point game. Even it was a lot closer than the final score let on. And they were in the game. Honestly, it felt like the Colts for a while in that game were going to win. They fell apart late, which is what has been kind of the story for the Colts the last couple of seasons. But the running game is better, and Richardson can keep improving. I think there's no reason to think that the Colts can't go into Jacksonville for the first time since 2014 and beat them and earn the win.
Well, by then you should have Jonathan Taylor back. Whether
Hopefully.
he's with the Colts or not,
right? Whether it's begrudgingly or whether he actually is ready to go.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe the Colts will be throwing to Jalen Waddle. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so for me, this one's going to be a way overreaction, because I know a lot of people would be like, that would be great if this could be what happens. For me, I don't want to see it really, just because of the way this team needs to grow and what needs to happen to help this team along. But my overreaction is the Colts will finish in second place in the AFC South and be in contention for the last wild card spot. Look, the AFC South teams did not look all that great. I mean, does Houston really scare you? No. I mean, Houston's going to be right up there contending for the first or second pick in the draft. Tennessee is, I mean, woohoo. DeAndre Hopkins choosing Tennessee with Ryan Tannehill, and
They lose week 1 to the Saints.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's much of an overreaction. It's possibly attainable. I mean, at least the Colts looked good in their loss, albeit it was at home.
Hey, 7-10 won a division last year, and that could be the case.
I don't think 7-10 will win you a division this year in the AFC, or the AFC South will not. I mean, Jacksonville's good.
Yeah,
I think Jacksonville kind of got. I almost feel like they overlooked this game, thinking rookie head coach, rookie quarterback, their star running back is nowhere to be found. So many holes to this team. Yeah. Okay. Week 1. So, but I don't know. I feel like
no, I'm glad that you went there, because that's where I was when the Colts were up 21-17. I'm like, the Colts might win the AFC South this year. If they played this.
I wasn't thinking that. What I was thinking when they were up 21-17 was, oh, there goes Marvin Harrison. I was just talking to myself, well, at least he will end up in Arizona and not in our division or in our conference. But yeah, that's my overreaction. Is I think the Colts I'm going to say the Colts will now finish second in the division and contend for that final wild card spot.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, like I said,
it's going to be tough to. I mean, it's going to be tough to nail down that last wild card spot. I mean, because we're looking at like the AFC West and everything. And that's well, who knows with the Chiefs?
Well, and who knows about? I mean, with the way the Steelers looked on Sunday, and which was a fringe team for us, it's not looking great for my Super Bowl pick. That may need to be added to the crash kiss of death list. But also the Jets, who knows what they're going to be? We kind of notched them as a playoff team. You know, what do they do? I mean, like it's funny because we say all this doom and gloom about the Jets. They won the game. they are 1-0, but what long term? Because they also won. They beat the Bills at home last year too, and still missed the playoffs. So, so there's a couple of potentially fewer teams in the mix than what we previously thought.
I'll give you my biggest hot take and my overreaction. Tom Brady comes out of retirement and starts at quarterback for the Jets.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say Raiders because he has partially home. He's like, you know what?
Jimmy G looked good.
Yeah, I was gonna say they won.
Jimmy G looked really good.
Yeah. But yeah,
until he gets injured, and then they have to fall back on Aiden O'Connell.
Until they have to go get Tom Brady.
No, that won't happen. They won't have to do that. They've got Aiden O'Connell. They got AOC sitting in there ready to go. So I'm secretly hoping that the Colts just are bad and ticket prices tank. And the Raiders have some success, but Jimmy G gets hurt. And then that December 31st game at Lucas Oil Stadium between the Raiders and the Colts is Aiden O'Connell playing. And I can get like tickets on my birthday for like super cheap to go see Aiden O'Connell.
Yeah, that'd be a birthday present. Aiden O'Connell, second year in a row, you get to see him play at Lucas Oil. That'd be pretty crazy.
That's true. Yeah.
But yeah, no, like I said, I like where your head's at with that because, when they were winning, I was like, my hot take is going to be they make the playoffs, and then they lost. And I was like, I don't know if I want to go that far. But, I want to also now go into one word to describe the offense and the defense. What is one word we can use to kind of sum up our thoughts on those two units from Sunday? For me, offense, I'm going to say promising. This is where Anthony Richardson was in comparison to what Horseshoe Heroes projected his stat line. I was looking for kind of like, okay, what are my thoughts for what a good debut would be, and how close are they to like what like other like blogs and journalists and stuff like that think his first game should be around, and let's see where Anthony Richardson kind of stacks up. His completion percentage. Horseshoe Heroes said a good stat line for him there would be 50 to 60%. His actual completion percentage was 65, actually a rookie record in his debut for the Colts. Wow. Passing yards, they had him between 200 and 250 yards. He threw for 223. Oh, also he had the most completions of any Colt quarterback in their debut, being out Andrew Luck.
Wow, okay. That's impressive considering how much you hear about his accuracy issues, which they appeared every now and again.
For sure.
Like the color commentator said, Jonathan Vilma said it. He said, look, Anthony Richardson's not, he's aiming the ball. He's not passing the ball. He's aiming it. And at a time where he missed a wide open Kylan Granson, he threw it behind him early in the game.
The Horseshoe Heroes had the number of passing touchdowns between 1 and 2. He had 1. Interceptions between 1 and 2. Richardson had 1. It has rushing yards between 50 and 80. He had 40, so close to that mark. Rushing touchdowns, they said between 0 and 1. He had 1. There definitely was some areas for improvement. We said, we said earlier, a lot of the things that you could knock on Anthony Richardson were not things we didn't already expect to kind of see him need to improve on throughout the course of the year. But truth be told, I know that we're just kind of focusing on Anthony Richardson, or I am in that statement. That's what we're going to kind of grade the Colts on this year offense-wise is going to be, Anthony Richardson is going to be the key to how much this offense progresses throughout the course of the year. And so through game 1, I like what I see. It's a very promising start for Anthony Richardson. As far as my one word for the defense, I'm going to say strong. This is the strongest unit on this team, and it showed on Sunday. They forced a couple of turnovers that kept Indy in the game. You have DeForest Buckner returning a touchdown, a fumble recovery for a touchdown. Jacksonville was just 4 of 15 on 3rd and 4th down, so the Colts held strong there. You got Shaq Leonard back to go along with other standout players we talked about tonight. So, just like the offense, there's cause for some optimism. We knew this was going to kind of by default be the best unit on the Colts, but I think they also showed that they are going to be a really good unit this year. Like I said earlier, when I saw that they had they gave up 342 yards, I was like, it doesn't feel like that at all. Because when I was watching the game, and I was watching Gus Bradley on the sideline talking his team up, I was like, this defense is had a top 5 day, right? A top 5, top 10 day. And I looked at the stats and they're like, yeah, they gave up almost 350 yards. I was like, oh, well, it didn't feel like that at all. It felt like that defense played, out of their minds all day.
Yeah. So for me, my one word for the offense, I'm going to say exciting, but hear me out. I know everybody's like, but it wasn't. I think so. Around 280 yards. The running game got nowhere. What I'm meaning by that is, one, like you said, all the knocks we've heard on Anthony Richardson were there, so we didn't, see anything that oh my gosh, that was not good and that's unexpected. But the plays that he does make on a regular are exciting. Like, for instance, there was one play, I think it was late. It was in the 3rd or 4th quarter. It was, in the 4th quarter when they were driving down right before he got knocked out. He scrambled out of the pocket, rolled out as the pocket was collapsing in on him. And as he's running towards the sidelines, he throws the ball back across his chest. Just a perfect pass, almost like a Pat Mahomes style pass, right to Michael Pittman Jr. for a first down. And my dad was over watching it, and he goes, did he really just throw that back across his chest like that? I said, yeah. I mean, but the thing is, that kind of play, he can make consistently. It's the basic plays that you need him to make consistently is where he struggles, which is surprising. So that's why I'm going to say exciting, because a play is never dead with Anthony Richardson. I feel like with Anthony Richardson, the amount of negative plays on offense are going to be far fewer. Because he's not going to go down, but I mean, then you look at his size, man, 6'5", 250, 255. I mean, and how fast he runs and how agile he is for that size too. It's kind of unfair. The way I described him to my dad, I was like, he's a unpolished Cam Newton in essence, but it's exciting football. yeah, it can be frustrating when they hand the ball off and it goes nowhere, but then you're like, well, they just ran with Jake Funk or Deion Jackson. I'm not terribly surprised there. And yeah, then it is frustrating when he misses a wide open tight end because he threw the ball behind him when he had a clean, super clean pocket. But it's still exciting because at any moment he can make a big play, and that is something I don't think the Colts have had really even since Andrew Luck. I don't even know if Andrew Luck you felt like every time he dropped back, something big could happen. I don't know. So that's why I say exciting. The defense, man, I want to say advantage. The way the defense played, if the offense could just get some consistency, that defense will be an advantage for this team. This team will be in every single game they play because of that defense. And that goes a long way as the season progresses. So if you can get some consistency out of the offense, keeping them on the field and keeping that defense on the sideline, there's no reason that defense cannot be a total advantage for this team throughout the rest of the year.
One more little topic I want to do from week 1, and then we'll move on to a little bit of week 2 before we move on from the Colts Jaguars. Our standout performer from week 1, who we think should kind of be the player of the game, the MVP from the first game of the season. My standout performance, I'm usually more of an offense guy. I usually like to shout out, players on offense. But I'm going with a defensive player here. I want to shout out the defense. I'm going with Zaire Franklin.
Yes.
Like I said before, there was a reason the Colts were in the game, and then the defense really did really well and was really strong. He had 18 tackles, which is a career high for him, which is pretty crazy. He had 10 solo tackles, which is also a career high. He led the team in tackles last season as well, but we asked ourselves in the preview, we were like, what's the impact of having no Bobby Okereke? What's this defense going to be? With some of the pieces like Stephon Gilmore and stuff like that. As a whole, obviously, Stephon Gilmore wasn't setting the world on fire with tackles, but like how will with losing some strong pieces of that defense from a year ago, Yannick Ngakoue, that kind of thing. Who is going to step up? Can Zaire Franklin step up? And so far, he has answered the call.
Yeah, that's who I was thinking of originally as well. When you get called a tackling machine by Jonathan Vilma,
yeah,
that says something for you. For me, I'm also looking at the defensive side of the ball as well. And I'm going with DeForest Buckner. And not because he had that fumble return for a touchdown. It just felt like DeForest Buckner all day was a disruptive force. He was getting constant pressure into the backfield and putting that pressure on Trevor Lawrence. He was making big plays, blowing up running backs occasionally. That's the type of stuff you want to see out of DeForest Buckner as a leader of that defense. I felt like kind of like last year, just he kind of faded off. And you didn't feel like it was a typical DeForest Buckner type season. So to see him come out of the gate hot like he did, kind of really passionate again, that I think that's really exciting. And so for me, I'm giving him the shout out of the player of the game. Like I said, not because of the fumble return, but just the consistent pressure and the energy he brought to that defensive line. And it showed throughout other players too. You saw Kwity Paye trying to feed off that energy and applying pressure. There was one play where Kwity Paye was held so bad, everybody knew the call before the flags were even thrown. And I think the official was having mic issues. And the announcer was like, well, we know what this call is. Jonathan Vilma said, I don't even have to circle it. We all know where it is. Walker Little just really held Kwity Paye for a long time. So that the energy that DeForest Buckner brought to that defensive line, you kind of saw throughout the line. And if he can bring that every week, that's only going to help this defense.
So looking ahead to week 2, the Colts play the Texans. And so I wanted to do We wanted to predict the game as well as give a stat prediction what we think might happen in week 2. I think Colts and Texans. I do think the Colts get the dub this week. I think they get their first win of the season. And what I'm predicting will happen is that Anthony Richardson will have his first multi-touchdown game through the air. I know he had a multi-touchdown game on Sunday because he ran one and threw one, but I think he'll have 2 touchdown passes, which feels kind of bold because Lamar Jackson had no touchdown passes against the Houston Texans this past week. But I think Richardson does get 2 touchdown passes and a Colts win against the Texans this week.
So, yeah, I reluctantly agree that the Colts will get the win. I say reluctantly because Houston's the team that you have to lose to if you want a shot of landing Marvin Harrison Jr. Because let's just be honest, that's the real prize this year. But yeah, I think the Colts get the win, and I'm going with Anthony Richardson stat as well. I'm going to say he throws for over 250 yards this week, and has I'm gonna say he throws for 2 touchdowns and rushes for 1. I think
game.
he also I'm gonna go big time here. He also rushes for 80 yards on the ground. He's the only weapon in the rushing attack of the team. And if you want to get the offense moving, him running, unfortunately, is going to be it, and that's going to open up the pass then.
Yep. I didn't think about that side of it, but yeah, you're right. He's kind of the only rushing threat they have as well.
And I guess, can I say Josh Downs gets his first career touchdown too?
I like that. A big weekend for the Colts, and we hope that happens. So why don't we go ahead, move off of the Colts for just a little bit here before we wrap up, and give a recap of week 1, just kind of tie a bow on the first weekend of the NFL season, of the NFL regular season. So I had a couple of things I wanted to discuss here. The first one is, whose bandwagon are you jumping on after week 1 of the NFL season? The team I'm going with the Lions. Now, I know I had the Lions in making the NFC Championship in my preseason pick, so I guess you could already say I had one foot on the Detroit Lions bandwagon, but now I've got both feet in. I mean, to go into Kansas City and beat the defending champs is a huge statement win. I know Kelsey didn't play, but also, this is Kansas City. It's supposed to be a team that it doesn't matter who Patrick Mahomes is throwing the ball to, they're going to win the game. I mean, heck, they lost Tyreek Hill and won the Super Bowl. So, they're supposed to be able to be like, oh, we lost a weapon. Ah, shucks. We're just going to pick back up and go and be dominant. And the Lions went in there and beat them. So that's a big statement win for them. It kind of, so I guess in a way, it kind of just, the reason why I want to say that I'm jumping on their bandwagon is this kind of solidifies them, in my opinion, as a team to be reckoned with this year. Because you have all those years where you go into the season, you're like, okay, I've got hype for this team. What are they going to do in week 1? All that kind of thing, and then you're either feeling really good about that pick or really bad after that pick after a week. And, picking the Lions to go to the NFC Championship game, I feel pretty good after they go in and they beat the Chiefs week 1.
Yeah, so I'm looking at 2 teams. One, I don't even know if you could say it's really a bandwagon because it was one of my picks. The 49ers, they looked really good going into Pittsburgh and doing what they did. That Steelers team, we all thought, oh, they got something going there. So I can't really say if that's a bandwagon to jump on because they're right up there. So for me, I'm going to say the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
I think this is what they did to Cincinnati and then what was done to Pittsburgh, and the fact that Lamar Jackson didn't throw any touchdowns against the Houston Texans. I think Cleveland. Right now, I'm game to say that I could put Cleveland in the catbird seat of the AFC North.
Yeah, I mean that's like you said, given what we saw on Sunday after 1 week.
I mean, it was a very good performance all across the board by the Browns. So if we're looking at teams that you don't typically talk about or hear about in that conversation of being one of the top tier teams this season, I would say the Cleveland Browns. That's
Yeah.
who I'm going with.
Now going the other way, which preseason prediction do you wish you could have back after week 1? I know what one you probably a lot of people would have, and that's having the Jets doing a lot of great things. I actually am going to go to Aaron Rodgers' former team. I had the Green Bay Packers on the outside looking in. I said in the preview show, I was like, look at the Packers. They were 8-9 with Aaron Rodgers, so they're not going to be really anything to be reckoned with this year. Going to Jordan Love. But what does Jordan Love do? Throw for 245 yards and 3 touchdowns in an 18-point victory at Soldier Field against a Bears team that I was much higher on than the Packers going into the season.
Yeah, me too.
So saying that the Packers were not necessarily because they still could miss the playoffs. I mean, it's just been 1 week, but saying that they were solidly on the outside looking in and basically implying that they're going to struggle to win 6 or 7 games seems like a little bit of a bad call after 1 week.
The pick I want to go back on is saying that the Kansas City Chiefs make it to the Super Bowl. I mean, yeah, you get Travis Kelce back eventually, but is that really enough based off of the performance that team put up against the Lions? I mean, it was a close game, but you just never felt like the Chiefs were the Chiefs, So the pick that I would want to take back is them making it to the Super Bowl for sure. Because I didn't have the Jets. I had them making the playoffs. I wasn't on that bandwagon of them winning the Super Bowl or making a run to the Super Bowl. But yeah, let's just put it this way. My 2 picks from the AFC, rough weekend.
Who was it that you had? You had the Chiefs, but who else did you have in there?
I'm pretty sure I had the Eagles.
No, but I thought you meant because we did AFC Championship, NFC Championship.
Oh, I had them playing the Bengals.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, I didn't know if you had the Bengals or not. I was like, I know I had the Bengals winning the Super Bowl, so I'm right there in that boat of of it doesn't look too great after 1 week. But yeah, so not a great first week for the Chiefs, and along those lines, that's where I'm going with as we wrap up here. Our bold prediction for week 2. There's after week 1, there isn't a bunch of bold to go around in week 2. You could go Raiders over the Bills. You could go Bengals dropping to 0-2. You could even, I don't know who the Jets play. That's why I was just trying to look up. I don't know who the Jets play. You could go them starting 2-0 because I do think I am buying into all of the propaganda after losing Aaron Rodgers of Zach Wilson will still have Aaron Rodgers to guide him and we'll still have he's improved and matured. I'm like, you know what? I could kind of believe that. I could understand. So
Zach Wilson might sleep with Aaron Rodgers' mom.
You could have that bold prediction be that the Jets win week 2 and start 2-0. But my bold prediction for week 2 is that the Chiefs will start 0-2. They lose to the Jags. It's in Jacksonville. I think the Jags beating the Chiefs to keep them winless in a playoff rematch from last season would be the big storyline. Going into week 3. So, after week 2 dust settles, if the Jaguars win and they're 2-0 and the Chiefs lose, they're 0-2, I think that's what a lot of the sports world will be talking about going into week 3.
All right. So I don't know. I'm going to say that the Chargers assert themselves as the team to Chargers assert themselves as one of the teams, if not the team to beat in the AFC.
With Jake Herbert.
Yeah.
Call back to last week. Or 2 weeks ago, or however long ago that was. But yeah, I mean, do you know who the Chargers play offhand this week?
I do not. Off the top of my head.
I kind of want to look real quick. I not to say that's not a good pick. Look, that game with them and the Dolphins was absolutely insane. I'm interested to see what Justin Herbert does. Let's see. It's the Chargers and the Titans. So, the Chargers are 0-1. I wasn't even thinking about that. It's when you have a game like they had against the Dolphins, you're like, oh, well, I can't even remember who won because it was so crazy. But yeah, heck, if they start 1-1 and you,
maybe not the AFC. I'll say the AFC West. The AFC, that's a bit strong, considering what like the Browns did. Mm-hmm. I'll say the AFC West.
Yeah, I think they're definitely in it for sure, especially if both of our predictions come true. I think that's going to be a big storyline.
So far, I'm batting over on my predictions, so hey, here we go.
Well, on that note, that will do it for this week's edition of the Crash Course Podcast. Thank you guys all for hanging out. Remember, you can like us on Facebook, 3C Media, at 3C Media Sports on Twitter. If you're on the YouTube channel, go check out the TikTok. That's where we got a lot of content going out as well. You guys have been showing a lot of love to like our players of the week and things like that. The high school football season. So shout out Jay Stuckey. He's our week 4 player of the week. So go check out the TikTok. If you're on TikTok or if you're on the podcast app, go check out the YouTube channel. That's where we've got a lot of good, content over there as well. You guys have been showing a lot of love to the YouTube channel as well, and I'm very grateful. We're very grateful that you guys have been showing love to that. And remember, you can listen to the Crash Course Podcast every week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts can be heard. You can hear the Crash Course Podcast. You can find me at Crash Course FM on Twitter. B. Scott, where can they find you?
Find me on Twitter at Brandon_Scott87.
Next week, we've got a pretty fun, entertaining video for you regarding college football. Really excited to bring that to you. But until then, have a good week, everybody.